Hello there, my name is Paige McWilliams and I'm part of Adam Lawrence's OL201 Leadership Experience class. Today I am going to be presenting my final project. In the Dropbox there is a folder with my graphic in it, which you can feel free to download and follow along with. That's kind of what I'm following along with here as well. So today I'm going to be talking a bit about my leadership experiences, relating to them to the course content, because obviously that's why I'm here in this course. And then I'll also just be talking about going forward with my career, even just like going forward in school, what I could be doing in school, things like that. So since I do have limited time, I'm going to just kind of jump right into it. So before I start talking about anything related to my actual previous leadership experiences, I'm just going to talk about some things that kind of like umbrella go over all of them. So things like career values, I kind of went through, there's this big list that's offered by the Department of Residence. We also had one in our textbook, and I kind of got them from a variety of different sources because that I think that there's more than just in our textbook. Even though it's a good textbook, it's good to look around. So my career values ended up kind of staying a bit the same but changing a little bit. So I really value advancement in my career, the ability to move forward, look forward. You know, at 19, 20 years old, I don't want to just do the same thing for the rest of my life. I want there to be opportunities for me to advance, move forward, do something new, be in a new position. I also really value affiliation, knowing people at work. I don't enjoy working alone, and I think that most places you're not going to work alone. You're going to be on a team, so it's really important to have that sort of affiliation. What I've noticed at my workplaces is if cast know each other better, they talk at work, things tend to work better, which is like really annoying when managers get really upset with cast for talking. If cast talk and people are talking together, usually things can run a bit better because they're more comfortable communicating with each other. Something else, financial gain. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Everybody needs financial gain from a job. That's why we all work. Financial gain isn't important to me in the sense that I need millions and millions of dollars. I just need to be able to live a comfortable life, which kind of ties into my next one of security. Obviously I want a secure paycheck. I'd like a secure job where I know that I will still be employed. That's why looking forward, I will talk about this a bit later, but one of my future career goals is to be a mediator. I kind of chose this because that like mediation is going to be something that's always going to be there. There will always be somebody like need for alternate dispute resolution. So having that security that, you know, I'm not going to be dumped the next day. My paycheck's going to pay for my food, my well-being, and everything. I also really value variety. So having a job where I'm not doing the same like task or exact same thing every day. And I think that's really important in millennial culture. That we're not just doing the same thing for the rest of our lives after we get out of school. We're not doing the same thing over and over again every day. So it's really important for me to have that variety, even if it's kind of the same job over and over again, just doing different things. Like for example, I work at the hub. Even though I do print jobs every day, they're a little bit different every time, things like that. So even just like smaller varieties like that, as long as I'm not doing this exact same task over and over again, that's really, really important to me. Then I'm just going to talk about some of my leadership values because I hold these really close to my heart, and as we go through you'll kind of see that I've held them with myself and leaders that I may not have gone along with so well. They may have not had the same values as me. So I really value people who lead by example. They do things, they expect others to do the same thing. I expect open lines of communication. If you're not communicating with me, I'm not going to be able to work effectively. If I, as the leader, am not communicating with others, then I can't expect them to work as effectively as they could if they knew everything that I knew or everything that they need to do in order to do the correct job. I also value honesty and truthfulness. That just kind of goes back to open lines of communication. If I don't know why I'm doing something, or if you told me something incorrect, then it may lead to worse things later on. And I really value commitment and dependability. So something that I'm really known for is being dependable. I'm always kind of there for people if they do need me. So like having a leader that maybe in and out or you just can't really depend on them to communicate or be there for you, then people may not be able to lead them as well. And that's something that I really struggled with in the past, is if I was in the follower role and I didn't really have somebody who was like really committed to the job or dependable, then it makes it really hard for you to be able to do your job. So with those things in mind, I'm just going to talk about a few of my past leadership opportunities. So if I go back a long time, I know this isn't within the 2 years that I started it, but is within the 2 years that I finished it. I was a Chuck E. Cheese Team 2 leader. So Team 2 is kind of like akin to an assistant manager. We just have a like focus or specialization. So mine was the party room. I was the party hostess, Team 2 leader. That meant I was in charge of all party functions and host. Some skills I gained from this, I really like gained oral communication skills, being able to talk with the other girls to get everything done. Time and resource management, so I need to like manage time, people, and material all at the same time, which is like a huge thing to learn when you're like 16 and first stepping into like an actual professional leadership role. And in that role, I ended up having to take an authoritative approach. This is kind of when I first started dipping my toe in and learning kind of what approaches were good for me. I kind of had to take an authoritative approach because it's really necessary with like a really quick paced environment and when you're managing a lot of people, because there may be like 25 to 30 of us on the floor at the same time. You can't exactly have a democratic conversation when you have like 100 plus kids in the room waiting for you. So when I was in charge, I had to just make those like quick decisions on what we were doing, and then people had to listen to what I had to say. So I didn't get that input, and I also had to just kind of have my hands in everything at all times. So I had to make the choice, and then I had to stick to it and make sure that everything was going well with that choice. So from there, I really struggled with authoritative leadership. I don't like it because the authoritative leadership always kind of has some sort of backlash. Even if you're making the right choice, just because you're making that choice, somebody may be questioning it. So I learned quickly that democratic leadership is definitely more down my alley. But along here, I did kind of like, I made my way through. I actually ended up increasing sales by 16% after 6 months in my position. So I was really happy with that. Fast forward, after this job, I got a job at Cineplex as a cast lead. So again, it's kind of like akin to a like supervisor, assistant manager, somewhere in between there. With the concentration, my concentration is outtakes or the kitchen kind of area. So I'm in charge of like upkeeping productivity, food safety, things like that. So I learned a lot in this role. Written and oral communication were definitely one of them. I was on the front line, so any upset customer or employee, that was kind of on me first, if I didn't have to take to managers. I also had to really learn how to organize time, stock, people, and materials. And from here, that's when I really learned I do enjoy a democratic leadership style. It makes life a lot easier. I'm lucky enough that we have open communications over email, so I'm allowed to email everybody and get opinions on things that I'm changing. Just having that democratic approach, being able to talk to everybody that's on that position and who's going to be affected by it, because there's only about 30 or so of us, but being able to put out polls and things like that, even if I didn't in the end go with what everybody wanted, at least I had some input, and so I could really defend my answer. So I really like the democratic leadership approach. I just find it makes a lot more people happy. It may take a little bit more time and effort, but it makes a lot more people happy. It doesn't let power go to people's heads. That's one thing I found when I was like a cast leader. Sometimes at Chuck E. Cheese when I was Team 2, sometimes I found myself, even though I'd make the wrong choice, I'd just stick by it just because I was almost on that power trip where I didn't want to like lose power, so I didn't want to admit that I had done wrong. So I really like that in the democratic leadership style, like it's kind of like we're all as a team, even though like if something goes wrong, it is technically just on my shoulders. It's kind of like as a team, and when things go right, it's all as a team as well. From there, I moved to school here at Laurier Brantford, and I had a lot more leadership experiences, not just working. So I was part of the Sustainability Council FYLP, or first year leadership program, And as it states, it's a leadership program for first years, so it's first years running fun things for first years. So in this role, I was a community representative. So we would take our ideas back to our community, and it was kind of a really, really democratic approach. So I needed to go to my community and figure out what they wanted from our council as a whole, and then bring it back to the council. So it was really nice because that we did get to kind of like talk to everyone. The problem with this though is that people may not be interested, and this is where I'm just going to quickly bring up the concepts, leadership concepts. So from here, I kind of like, this is where I kind of tie in where I started really focusing on leadership concepts. So I realized to get the role, I need to have a likable personality. I just think I'm a generally likable person. I'm kind. So I luckily had that going for me. But what I lacked, I found, was an exciting vision and clear expectations. So what I ended up having to do halfway through the year is kind of go into my floor meetings, because that people weren't really excited about the sustainability council because I was just asking for ideas. So I ended up having to think about ideas before I came, or kind of like shells of ideas come in with that exciting kind of vision of what we could be doing as a council, which I got more feedback on then. And then from there, even still wasn't getting the results I wanted, so I had to make my expectations more clear and go for that clear expectations leadership content. So I told people, we had a Facebook group, and I was like, I kind of expect everybody to be there with an idea. I would say at the beginning, before I even started talking about sustainability, I would talk about what I needed from them in order to move forward, so that they were clear on what I needed. And then like participation went way up. It made things a lot easier, and I ended up being able to tell this to the other community representatives, and they brought it to their floor meetings as well. And it just kind of like ended up kind of bringing everyone together and us getting more ideas and things like that. And again, I kind of had to like, for my leadership values, I kind of had to lead by example for that one. So when I would just let people run over me and kind of seem uninterested with them in order to fit in, they wouldn't, of course, they would just go with it. So I need to really lead by example and be really excited by things so they would get excited by it as well. I also need to have those open lines of communication, kind of like I had to show that I was committed to the role as well. I was also part of the LEAD RLC, or Residence Learning Community. LEAD so LEAD was basically about community outreach. It was very fun. RLC, which is Residence Learning Community, which is where we all live together. We participate in different community outreach activities like serving soup. We did some sock drives, some clothing drives, some food drives, things like that. Which was a really fun project, but it also taught me a lot about leadership. So I kind of got, from this role, I was obviously a leader in my community, but I also learned a lot about leadership from my Don Spencer Gilmore. So Spencer Gilmore was a special type of leader to me. He was a servant leader. So he didn't take any of the glory, he didn't really benefit that much from being our Don of the RLC. But he took everything for the team. He did everything he could for us. He was on all the he was always in the background. So he may not have gotten all the glory we did for doing everything, but he was definitely one of the only reasons we got through everything. So he kind of introduced that concept of servant leadership to me, somebody that's like just doing things for the team, not just like for self-gain, but for the team as a whole in order to help us run better. And so I really enjoyed his kind of leadership approach, and it kind of opened my eyes to like that sometimes, I need to take one for the team, that saying. I need to take one for the team in order for the team to move together as a whole. So I kind of think of that servant leadership as something everybody should be doing together. Because if we had things like that going, then team leadership would be like way pushed forward. We wouldn't need a specific leader in teams if people were just working together as a team like that. Something else I did last summer, I was Tim Hortons supervisor. This was a flop leadership wise for me. I ended up hating this job. I got an excellent rating in my exit interview, which I definitely didn't deserve because this job went very poorly for me. I had to take an authoritative approach in my leadership skills. I really tried to be democratic at first and get kind of everybody's opinion before I made decisions, but it ended up being too quick paced. I couldn't just sit there and take my time talking to people about decisions. So I ended up having to go with the authoritative approach with kind of a laissez-faire background. So I had to make the decisions, tell everyone what to do, and then delegate everything to everybody else. And of course, this, as I said, did not go well for me. Even though I find myself really good at oral communication, things weren't going well. People weren't listening. So I kind of I needed to get that concept of teamwork and team building. And by the time I did leave, we were kind of getting that kind of sense of team together. But it was really hard because authoritative approach wise, I may just not be confident enough as a person as a whole just to be putting those ideas out there, and maybe they saw the cracks in that shell of I wasn't completely confident with all my answers. So I think that definitely affected my ability to be an effective leader in that role. So what I kind of taken away from that and what I kind of put towards my new leadership positions that I'm in is that if I'm making decisions and I'm making that choice to be in an authoritative role, I need to commit to it and I need to show confidence in all of my answers, or else people will start seeing those holes, those cracks, and they'll kind of wedge their way in, for lack of a better analogy. But yeah, if I don't be fully confident in myself, then things will go poorly, which kind of brings me to my next leadership approach, bookstore and hub. Because I work so often, I kind of get information before everybody else does. So this kind of puts me in a leadership position of my own, because if managers are out of office or anything, it's just me there. Usually I'm the one with the answers. So I've learned a lot from this job, punctuality, timeless, organization, and space management 100%. But I definitely had to bring in that likable personality in order for them to trust me and things like that. Emotional intelligence was definitely a huge one. Being able to talk to different employees of different backgrounds, especially with school, because students can get really stressed really easily. And in this role, I kind of chose to lead by example. I am the most democratic, laid back leader. If I am making choices, then it is for everyone. And so I found that made this go a lot better for me. And again, we kind of touched that point about servant leadership, because that my managers in that role are kind of doing everything they can for the team. They don't get any of the personal gain, any of the kind of victories. It's mostly us as the customer service representatives, but they kind of do everything they can for us. They're in that support role. And I just have one more role I may want to just touch on quickly. I am a Laurier ambassador at the school as well, which is a fantastic job. But I've learned so much from this role, being a leader, because this kind of puts you as a leader with potential families, a leader in the recruitment kind of department, because that you are kind of the first people on the scene. You actually hear from potential families. You're young yourself, you're in school, so you kind of went through that recruitment and everything. So it definitely puts you in a leadership role within that department. And it puts you in leadership. For me specifically, I took on a separate portfolio of training all the residents ambassadors, so it put me as a leader in the first year community. So all of these kind of require different approaches. All of them need a really likable, bubbly personality, or else things are gonna flop. Of course, you need that really exciting vision, especially for potential families. If you don't have that exciting vision of where their kid could go, exciting vision for yourself, even if families aren't feeling it from you that you know what you want to do, or you're really excited for your future, then they're gonna be really questioning if they really want their kid to go there. So things like that, this is the main place where I learned that I need to have that exciting vision in my life. And honestly, this role has gotten me to kind of think more about what I want to do in my life and everything, so I am able to have that exciting vision for other kids, which is super, super important. And with my additional portfolio for residence ambassadors, I really have to keep that open line of communication and lead by example. You know, if kids see me skipping class, things like that, because I am prominent in the first year community now, and they're gonna start doing the same thing. Same thing with if they see me like using poor language, anything like that, then they're gonna use that exact same thing when I bring tours to them. So you really have to lead by example in that position. So I also wanted to talk about a few different concepts from the class. I really liked the part about followership, because I think that that's something that's really ignored when we talk about leadership, when it's really like leadership's just half of it. There's a whole other half where there's people following you or where you're following other people, and nobody's just a leader, just a follower. So it's really important for everybody to kind of take that look at themselves and think about how they should be a follower and should be a leader. So I really like Ira Shalef's kind of like Punnett Square on it. When thinking about it, I mostly thought of myself as a partner. Usually I have 100 questions and challenges a day for my managers, for example, at some of my jobs. But because that they answer those questions and I make them answer those questions, I'm really, really supportive of them because I have that information. But again, that's not always the correct approach to go. Sometimes your leaders can't answer all those questions for you, so you just have to support them. Or sometimes you have a leader that isn't making the correct choices. So you really have to you can't support them, and you need to challenge them on what they're doing in order to get the correct answers. So I just want to talk about going forward. As I said earlier, later on in life I want to become a mediator. That is my goal. So I just want to kind of look back before I look forward. So I really need to look at what leadership experiences went poorly. So of course, I was talking about Tim Hortons went really poorly, and I had some issues at Chuck E. Cheese's, and so I was kind of looking for the branching things between them, and both times it was when I really tried to take an authoritative approach. So at first I was considering it, and I was like, maybe I just need to steer clear of that, but that's also not appropriate. I think I just need to become more confident in myself and more confident in my decisions, or that fake it till you make it, in order to be able to present that authoritative side of myself, because sometimes it's just necessary in the positions you're in. But I also just didn't want to focus on the bad. I really wanted to focus on what ones went well. So my jobs at Cineplex, Laurie Ambassador, bookstore, all of those went very well. So my main thing is keeping open lines of communication often. So checking in with everybody, always responding in a timely manner, things like that are really important. And I really like sticking to that partner fellowship where I'm asking a lot of questions from my leaders and maybe challenging them a bit, but I'm able to fully support them after that because I know that they're making the right decisions. Overall, I think I need to improve by becoming more confident in myself so I'm able to make those choices, either as an authoritative leader, even as a laissez-faire leader. In order to delegate to others, I need to be more confident in myself. But overall from the course, I'm really happy that I've become more engaged in my leadership values. Looking at your leadership values is very, very helpful, because it kind of helps you recognize why you may not get along with other leaders, but also to have an idea of leadership values to maybe be able to pick out what other leaders value in order to understand where they're coming from. It definitely makes it a lot easier. And I really appreciated the concept of followership. So it's just a really interesting concept that isn't talked about often, but needs to be talked about a lot more often, especially in today's society. So that basically wraps up my presentation there. Please feel free to look over my graphic more, and thank you for watching.